A couple checks their account, and, for the first time, the number feels real. Most of it sits in the stock from the company one of them has worked at for 12 years. Nobody told them the rules just changed. They're celebrating the way they always have, the same excitement, the same instinct to hold on and let it ride. That instinct is exactly what built this number. It is also exactly what could unbuild it. Nothing about this looks reckless from the inside. There was no single bad decision, no dramatic warning sign, just years of the same habit working so well that nobody ever stopped to ask if it still made sense. Here is the idea almost nobody explains out loud. Building wealth and keeping wealth are not the same skill. One rewards concentration, speed, and risk. The other rewards patience, spreading things out, and protecting what already exists. That's the confusing part. The habits that felt brave and smart on the way up can feel like betrayal on the way down, selling the winner, spreading the money out, giving up the dream of one more double. This isn't only a story for people who work at hot startups. It shows up for anyone whose win, a stock, a business sale, an inheritance, a paid-off house, becomes most of what they own, without them ever choosing that on purpose. Wealth managers have a rough guideline here. Once a single holding passes around 5% of your total net worth, it starts adding risk that isn't rewarded with extra return. Past that point, you're not investing anymore. You're gambling with money you can't afford to lose twice. Option 1 is staying concentrated. The vibe is exciting. You got here because you believed in one thing, and selling any of it can feel like admitting you were wrong or giving up future upside. The real cost is that your entire financial future now depends on one company's next decade. A great business can still have a terrible 5 years. When it's 80% of your net worth, that terrible stretch is your whole retirement plan. The hurdle is that selling isn't free. A large gain can trigger a real tax bill, and that tax bill is the exact reason many people talk themselves into waiting one more year, and then another. Here's why waiting feels safer than it is. The bigger the gap between what you paid and what it's worth now, the larger the tax bill on any sale, so the position that needs trimming the most is often the hardest one to touch. Option 2 is the opposite overcorrection, selling everything at once out of sudden fear and scattering it into dozens of small, disconnected pieces. The vibe is relief. Finally, nothing feels fragile. The cost is a different kind of fragility, no plan behind the spreading, a rushed tax event from selling everything in 1 year, and money parked so cautiously it barely grows. Fear made the decision, not a strategy. The hurdle is that scattering isn't the same as protecting. Without knowing what each part of the money is supposed to do, it's easy to end up diversified and still unprepared for the thing that actually goes wrong. Option 3 is a deliberate preservation layer, trimming the concentrated position on purpose, on a schedule, and moving a portion into something boring and steady before it's forced by a bad year. The cost here is real too. You give up some of the dream of maximum upside. If the stock triples from here, part of you will always wonder what the untouched version would have looked like. The hurdle is patience and a plan. Trimming gradually, using tax-aware timing, and sticking to a schedule even when the stock is climbing takes more discipline than either holding everything or dumping everything. This isn't only a stock story. A renter whose entire savings sits in one aggressive fund faces the same concentration question as a business owner whose company is most of what they're worth on paper. The closer someone is to actually needing the money, retirement, a home purchase, paying for care, the more that one concentrated bet can turn a comfortable plan into a stressful one almost overnight. It also matters when there's only one income behind the household. Without a second paycheck to lean on, a concentrated setback doesn't just dent the future, it can hit the grocery budget and the mortgage payment in the same month. So pause on this one privately. If your biggest asset dropped by half tomorrow, a stock, a business, a property, a fund, would your household still be okay? Or is one lucky bet quietly doing all the work right now, Here's where it gets more serious. Three forces quietly shrink a big number even when nothing dramatic seems to be happening: concentration risk, sequence risk, and lifestyle lock-in. Concentration risk is simple. One holding can swing far harder than a diversified basket in both directions. The upside is real, but so is the chance of a much deeper, longer drawdown than a spread-out portfolio would ever see. Sequence risk is the timing trap. The same average return can leave you in very different places, depending on whether the bad years hit while you're still adding money, or right after you've started living off it. This is where the well-known 4% withdrawal guideline comes from, a rule built on diversified, historical portfolios. Run that same math against one concentrated stock, and the safety margin the rule assumes simply isn't there anymore. Lifestyle lock-in is quieter than a market crash. Every upgrade, the bigger house, the newer car, the private school, raises the monthly number you now need. A preservation mindset asks what income you actually need to protect, not just what number you'd like to see grow. Here's the trap underneath all three. The accumulation mindset doesn't switch off just because the number got big. The same confidence that says, double down, is the one whispering that this time, the concentration is different. To be honest about the downside, households have watched a life-changing balance fall by half or more in a single bad stretch, while their monthly costs never paused to check the market first. That gap is where real stress lives. This isn't hypothetical. In 2001, employees who had loaded their retirement accounts with their own companies, stock watched both their job and a huge share of their savings disappear in the same collapse, the exact concentration risk this video is about. None of this means panic or paralysis. It means running one honest test on paper before the market forces the question for you. First, name your actual concentration. Add up everything you own and ask what percentage sits in your single largest holding: one stock, one property, one business. Most people have never actually done this math. Second, if that single holding is meaningfully above roughly 5% of your net worth, consider a gradual, tax-aware trim, not all at once, not out of fear, just a steady schedule that moves you back toward balance. Third, separate the number you'd like from the number you actually need. Circle the minimum monthly income that keeps your household steady, and make sure that amount doesn't depend on one holding staying at today's price. Write down one plain question and answer it honestly. What happens to this household if our single biggest asset is cut in half next year? If the honest answer is, we'd be fine, you're likely already playing the preservation game. If the honest answer is uncomfortable, that discomfort is useful information, not a reason to freeze. It's the signal that some of tonight's plan should be a gradual, scheduled move from concentrated to protected. In practice, a trim is quieter than it sounds. It might mean selling a set, modest slice every quarter, regardless of whether the stock is up or down that week, until the concentration settles closer to a comfortable level. The money doesn't vanish when it's trimmed. It moves into broader index funds, a cash buffer, and steadier holdings like bonds. The household keeps the same total wealth. It just stops depending on one company's next earnings call. None of this means giving up on growth altogether. It means growth and protection can sit in the same household at the same time, one part still reaching, one part quietly guarding what's already been won. The households that handle this best usually didn't wait until the number got big. They built the habit of checking concentration early, when the amounts were smaller and the stakes of practicing the habit were low. This can be as ordinary as a twice-a-year check-in. Add up the accounts, note the single biggest slice, and ask if it's still comfortable. No spreadsheet obsession required, just a repeatable habit. Preservation compounds too, just quietly. A household that protects what it has, year after year, tends to arrive at retirement with far less stress than one still hoping the same single bet keeps working forever. Back at that kitchen table, the number hasn't shrunk out of fear. It's simply been reorganized, some of it still reaching for more, some of it now quietly protected from a single bad year. Getting rich and staying rich really are different games, with different rules, different instincts, and different risks. The confidence that builds a fortune is not the same instinct that protects one. Knowing which game you're actually in tonight is the first step either way. This is general information, not personal advice. Your right mix of growth and protection depends on your own household, income, and goals. Subscribe to this channel for more clear money steps like this.